Hey guys, it's Courtney from Soul Deep Devotions. I wanted to come and do a video devotion because it's been a while, and I wanted to kind of say stuff that I feel like would go over a written word count that we usually have when we do written devotions. So yeah, let's get into it. I wanted to come from Galatians chapter 2, verses 17 through 21, and I'm just going to read that really quickly. I'm in the ESV. It says, "But if, in our endeavor to be justified in Christ, we too were found to be sinners, is Christ then a servant of sin? Certainly not. For if I rebuild what I tore down, I prove to myself to be a transgressor. But through the law, if I died to the law, so that I might live to God, I have been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. And the life I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. I do not nullify the grace of God, for if righteousness were through the law, then Christ died for no purpose." So basically, the long and short of what that says is that we overcomplicate glorifying God, and we overcomplicate our own salvation. How many times, and I know I've said this before, but as Christians, how many times do we look to overcomplicate what Jesus has done for us, what being a Christian means? How many times do we add extra steps for the sake of trying to look impressive or trying to make something into an equation that really is not meant to be an equation? Basically what Paul is saying in this whole little blurb here is that your salvation has nothing to do with the good things that you do. It has nothing to do with the good works that you do. It has nothing to do with your good intentions. It has everything to do with the work that Christ did on the cross. I just want to go to verse 18 because I feel like it's where it really picks up. And it says, "For if I rebuild what I tore down, I prove to myself to be a transgressor. For through the law, I died to the law so that I might live to God." So basically what that's saying is that up until this point, people who wanted to glorify God, or people that wanted to show that they believed in God or qualify themselves to go to heaven after they died, would follow the law or Old Testament. And basically what that meant was, yes, I believe in God, but I also have to jump through all these other hoops. I have to do all of these other things in order to prove that I love God. So what they did was they said, yes, I believe in God, but then they also had to be circumcised if they were a male, or they had to keep kosher when they ate or who they ate with. They had to give sacrifices to atone for their sins. So they had to do all of these ABCs in order to show or prove to God that they believed in him and that they loved him and that they were willing to live a life in complete sacrifice to God. And so when Jesus died on the cross in order to take all of that and throw it out and make salvation and loving God that much easier, people had a problem letting go of what they always knew. They had a problem letting go of the tradition and letting go of all of these rituals that they had to do in order to, quote unquote, please God. And so what Paul is talking about here when he's writing to the Galatians is, you don't have to strive and you don't have to force certain things in order to show God that you love him, because he sent his son to die on a cross for your sins so that it could be that much easier to please me, so that it could be that much easier to show me that you love me. And basically, it was difficult to do. And you know what? I can sympathize with those people, because even today, it's hard for us to realize that the things that we do has no bearing on our salvation. I can't do anything that will get me closer to heaven that Christ hasn't already done for me. And what it's saying right here is that anything that you do that anything that you do that's done in the name of getting or attaining or maintaining salvation cheapens what Jesus did on the cross. Because what Jesus did on the cross was for your salvation. And the reason why he did it was so that his work, his power, his glory would have everything to do with your own salvation, and that nothing you can do would have anything to do with that. So when you're saying, oh, I'm doing A, B, and C to maintain my own salvation, what that's doing is it's taking all of the power and the control and the glory off of Jesus and putting it into your own lap, and you're making yourself more important than what Christ did on the cross. And that's basically what it's saying here. It's saying, for through the law I died to the law, because the law, the Old Testament, it all points to the event of Jesus dying on the cross. So by the law set up Jesus dying on the cross. The law led up to that very moment. The law antiquated itself in the moment of Jesus dying on the cross, so that you could live by Jesus, through belief in Jesus, and not have to keep kosher, not have to give sacrifices of sheep whenever you've screwed up. It's saying, through the law I died to the law. Through the law I stopped having to do that, because Jesus came and fulfilled the law. So that I might live to God, so that I might live closer and in better communion with God. And then in verse 20 it goes on to say, I've been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. And the life I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God. So basically what that's saying, and I thought that this was so cool when I read it and realized it, is that when we see in verse 20 where it says, and the life I now live in the flesh, I live by faith. When we read flesh, Christians tend to read flesh as sin nature. And that this verse, although that can be interchanged into flesh, it goes deeper than that. It goes farther than that. Flesh is not meaning sin. Flesh means the whole nature of man, including reason and instinct. So what it's saying is, the life I now live in my whole nature, including my reason, including the instinct that innately was born in me the day I was born, the day I came out of the womb, all of those things that are innate to being a human, all those things that are just part of the package of being a person on earth, all of those things I have, but I now live by faith in the Son of God. So basically what Paul is saying is, I'm taking my whole person, the whole person that I used to be, and I'm crucifying it with Christ, and I am now living by faith. So and that's the whole point of Christianity. The whole point of following Jesus is that he did this amazing thing for me and you so that I could take my old self and give it to Jesus, who already died on the cross, and that I can live a new way. I could live free of the shame of my past. I can live free of all of my yesterdays, because it was covered on the cross. It was covered by that event of Jesus dying on the cross. So I take the entire life that I had before Jesus, and I now take that and I cover it by his grace, and I live by faith in what Jesus did, who loved me and gave himself for me. And then in verse 21, it just kind of really concludes this whole passage in such a beautiful way. It says, I do not nullify the grace of God, for if by righteousness, I do not nullify the grace of God, for if righteousness were through the law, then Christ died for no purpose. And basically what that's saying is, I am not going to negate, I am not going to ignore the grace of God. Because if I did that, if I ignored what Jesus did on the cross, if I count for the things that I do by good works as more important than what Jesus did on the cross, then I'm basically saying that righteousness is through the law. But righteousness is not through the law, because if it was, then Jesus died for no purpose. If the law, if good works, if jumping through hoops and keeping to tradition and marking all of our neat little check boxes off equated to faith, equated to salvation, then Jesus would have had no reason to die on the cross. Then Jesus dying on the cross was a meaningless event if we believe that. If we believe that anything that we can do would get us closer to heaven, would get us closer to glorifying God, outside of what Jesus did, then you're taking the importance off of Jesus and you're putting it onto yourself, which goes against Christianity, which breaks covenant with God, which just completely takes what he did and negates it and makes it meaningless. So I just really wanted to say that. I wanted to show that to you because when I saw that and when I really understood it, it really just broke everything wide open for me, because I think that sometimes as Christians we say, oh, I have to serve at church. Oh, I have to mentor that youth. I have to go to work and be a good employee and model Jesus to my coworkers or my friends and XYZ, and all of those things are good things. Don't get me wrong. I'm not telling you to stop doing that. I'm not telling you that those things don't mean anything, because that's totally not true. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is none of that stuff means anything without the cross. And so if you're taking that and you're moving the balances to say what I can do is more important than what Christ already did, then you're missing salvation completely. And you're negating your own salvation because Jesus bought your salvation. If following the law does more for your own salvation, then you're missing the mark completely. Actually, saying that your own law is more important than Jesus is actually sinning more, if that makes sense. It's being more disobedient to the Lord. Saying that good works is more important than Jesus dying on the cross is sinful nature in and of itself, because it's making yourself more important than God, which is something that we shouldn't aim to do. So I hope that that makes sense. I hope that that encourages you. I'm not telling you to stop doing good things. I'm not telling you to stop being a good servant or a good steward of Jesus or the things that he did. But what I am saying is that salvation has no bearing on that. There's nothing you can do that can push you closer to salvation that Jesus hasn't already done. So just be encouraged in that. Take the pressure off of yourself. Don't overcomplicate your own salvation. It's simple and it's easy, and it's just a lifestyle that you live. Not for your own glory, but for his glory. So thank you for listening to me for so long. Again, if you don't know it by now, let me just quickly say it. We put something out every Tuesday, either me or Megan Kelly, that makes up Soul Deep Devotions. If you can't possibly wait till Tuesday, you can connect with us on social media. We have a Facebook, a Twitter, an Instagram, a Pinterest, a YouTube, a website. If you want to join our emailing list, you can go to souldeepdevos.com. That's souldeepdevos.com. unpacking.com, and in the upper right you can sign up for the emailing list. That's the best way to know about a new thing that we come out with and keep up with us, keep in step with us, keep in stride with us. And I just am praying for you today. I'm hoping that the Lord reveals himself to you, that the Lord shows you just how easy it is to please him, just how much he loves you. And yeah, I hope you're encouraged today. I hope that you have a good one. Okay, see you guys next time. Bye.